Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we will see what are variables inside classes. We already know what is a variable. Variable is a name given to data types which we are using to store information. What is a data type? Data type is used to store data or information. So let's see with an example. Here we can see data type can be considered as a container. We have different types of data types. For storing integers, we have byte, short, int, long, float, double. For storing true false value, we have boolean data type. Then for storing characters, we have char. So these data types can be considered as a type of container, and variable can be considered as the name given to this container. In this example, we can see this glass container can be considered as a data type. Variable is the name given to container. For example, this jar's name is labeled as salt. This label is the name given to this container. So this can be considered as a variable for this container. Similarly, sugar is the label given to this container. So sugar can be considered as variable for this container. And literal is the actual data that is stored inside this container. So this is a very good example where we can see the difference between data type, variable and literal. So this was all about variables which we already know. Now depending upon where these variables are present inside a class or depending upon their usage, these variables are further classified into three types. So what are those three types? First is instance variable, second is static variable, third is local variable. So we will see one by one what is the meaning of these variables. So let's get started. First we will go ahead and see what is an instance variable. So till now we already know what is the meaning of instance. Instance means nothing but object. So as the name suggests, instance variable means variables associated or related with object. So let's see with an example. We will see the same class, bottle class. So here we can see we have four different types of variable. First variable is of integer type and variable name is id, which will be used to store id. Second is of string type and the variable name is type, which we will use to store bottle type, whether it is a water bottle or cola bottle, information like that. Third variable is again a string type and it will be used to store the material of the bottle. Fourth variable is company name. So this bottle belongs to which company, that we will be storing. If we see further, we have a main method here, and inside this main method we are creating one object using this bottle class. So we have created one object for this bottle class and the object name is b1. So using this class we have created this b1 instance or b1 object, and using this variable name for this object b1 we are assigning the values to this variable. So b1.id equal to 1, b1.type equal to water bottle, b1.material equal to plastic, and b1.company name is XYZ bottles. So this is the name of the company. Now if we see further, we have created one more instance of this bottle class. Instance name is b2. Instance or object name is b2, and here we can say using this class one more object we have created, and we have assigned values like b2.id equal to 2, b2.type equal to cola bottle, b2.material equal to glass, b2.company name again it's XYZ bottle. So using this class we have created two object or two instance of this bottle class, b1 and b2. Whenever we create b1, it will get a copy of this variable entirely for itself. That is, this b1.id belongs to this b1 object, this b1.type belongs to this b1 object. So these variable belongs to b1. Whenever a new instance is created, one copy of this variable will be given to that instance. For example, here if we see bottle b2 is created, b2 will get its own copy of this variable. This b2.id, b2.type, b2.material and b2.company name belongs to b2. So every time we create a new object, it will get a separate copy of this variable. That's why these variables are called instance variable, because every time we create a new object, this new object will get a new copy of these variables. Now if you go ahead and change this b1.id equal to 100. It will just change the id for this object. It will not affect this object because this object has its own separate copy. Similarly, if you are changing this variable b1.type, it will be changed for only for this object. It will not affect this object because this object has its own separate copy. It is similar to you going to a college and asking for admission form. The college will have a template of admission form. The college will print that template and provide you the admission form. Similarly, if some other student comes, again they will print and provide that admission form. In your admission form, you can write your details, your name, your address, your marks. Similarly, the other student will fill his details. Every time a new student come, each student will get its separate copy. Similar to that, if we consider this bottle class can be considered as the template, and every time we create a new object, each new object will get its own separate copy of this variable. Bottle b1 will get its own separate copy of variables. Similarly, b2 will get its own separate copy that will belong to b2. Similarly, in this way, if you create thousands of bottle, each bottle will get its own separate copy of this variable. So these variables are called instance variable. I hope it is clear. We have already used instance variables in a previous video. Let's open IntelliJ and we will see once more how to create this instance variable. So I have opened my IntelliJ IDEA and here I have already created the class bottle demo, and inside this bottle demo class I have these four variables: ID, type, material and company name. So let's go ahead and create an object for this variable. So for creating object, we have to use the class name bottle demo. This is the type of the object which we are going to create. What object name will be b1 new bottle demo. So object is created here. This b1 will get its separate copy of this variable, that is instance variable. So b1.id equal to 1, b1.type equal to water bottle, b1.material equal to plastic, b1.company name will be XYZ bottles. So we have created the object and we have assigned values. So these variables are specific to this object instance. If I create another object bottle demo b2 equal to new bottle demo. So this is a new object. This b2 will get its own separate copy of this instance variable. So these variables are called instance variable. We can simply assign this value to b2. We have to change this value, this variable name, to b2, and I can change the value to 2. Let me change it to cola bottle. Let me change this value to glass. Company name will be same, b2.company name XYZ bottle. So here we can see this object instance will get its own separate copy of this variable. So that's why, since these variables are associated with object or instance, they are called instance variable. And also there is no way you can assign values to this variable without creating an object. So if I did not create this object, there is no way we can assign values to this variable. How can you assign this values to variable? If you try to assign it like this, id equal to 1, we will get an error. So there is no way to assign values to this variable without creating an instance or without creating an object. That's the reason they are called instance variable. Now if we try to print the value for this object, we can simply print b1 So if I have printed the values, and if I run this, I will be able to see the value for first instance. So we can see the details of first instance, we can see the details of second instance. Now suppose if I'm changing the ID for the first object, if I change the ID to 100, and if I run this, you can see the ID for the first object is getting changed, the ID of the second object does not change. That means this object got its separate copy of this instance. That means changing the value for this instance does not affect this instance. So that proves my point that each of these object instance gets its own separate copy of variables, and changing the value for one instance does not affect the other instance. Now I hope it is pretty clear what is an instance variable and how it works. If we go back to our slide again, we can read here, declared inside a class but outside of any method, constructor or block. So we can see here this instance variable is inside the class but outside any method. So it is inside the class but outside any method, constructor or block. So that is the meaning of first point, inside a class but outside of any method, constructor or block. Second point is each object instance of the class gets its own copy of instance variable. So this point we have already seen, and I have also proved you that each of these instances is getting its own copy. Third point is they are created when an object is instantiated and destroyed when the object is destroyed. So when this object is created, it will get its copy of instance variable, and when this object is destroyed, these variables will be destroyed. So that is what it mentions here in the third point. They represent the unique state of each object. The state of an object is set of values of its instance variable at any given moment. So it represents a unique state. If we consider this object B1, it has value as ID equal to 1, type equal to water bottle, material plastic, company name XYZ bottles. So these values are nothing but it is called state of this object. If I change the value to from 1 to 2, then the state will change. So each object has its unique state. That is what it mentions here. So state is nothing but the current values it is holding. You cannot assign value to instance variable without creating an object. So this point also we have seen, we cannot assign values to these variables without creating an object. So if we do not create this object, we cannot assign values to this variable. So that is what it is mentioned in this point. So that was all about instance variable. I hope it is clear. Now we will see what are static variables. Now if we look at this code, this is the same code which we used in our previous example. If we look into this, we can see the variable company name is getting repeated. So company name for object 1, that is B1, is XYZ bottle, and company name for object B2 is also XYZ bottle. So this variable company name will be same for all the bottles. If we create 1000 bottles, this company name variable will be same for all the 1000 bottles. So here we can see this is getting repeated. Company name equal to XYZ bottle is getting repeated for all the bottle objects. If we create 1000 objects, we will have to go ahead and set this variable company name for all those 1000 objects, even though the company name will be same for all those 1000 bottles. So we are repeating the code again and again for those 1000 bottles. So B1 will have its own separate copy of this variable company name. B2 will have its own separate copy. So we will have to go ahead and set this variable for each of the 1000 objects which we are creating. So is there a better way that we can create this variable company name instead of creating it 1000 times? Yes, we can go ahead and create a static variable. So now what is a static variable? So if you look at this variable right now, it is an instance variable. Every object will get its own separate copy. So how to convert this variable into static variable? We can simply use a static keyword. So you can see here, I just added this static keyword in front of this variable declaration. Before it was string company name, I just added static in front of this string company name. So now this has become a static variable. Now what is the advantage of using this static variable? Static means only one copy is created, and this copy will be shared with all the objects which is created. In instance variable we saw every object will have its own separate copy, but with static only one copy is created, and that one copy of this variable will be shared among all the objects. So how to assign values to this variable? We can use the class name dot variable name. So class name is bottle dot variable name, static variable name is company name, so bottle dot company name equal to xyz bottle. Now I don't have to go ahead and set this company name for each bottle, so I can remove this variable. I removed it from here and I removed it from here. In this way you can make use of static variable. Now if I create 1000 bottle, the value of company name will be xyz bottle for all those 1000 bottles. I don't have to go ahead and set it manually like we were doing with instance variable. So this is how we can use static variables. Let's open our IntelliJ IDEA and there we will see in practice. So I have opened my IntelliJ IDEA and this is the code we have written. I will make this variable as static. So now this variable has become static. Now how to assign this variable? We saw class name is bottle demo dot company name equal to xyz bottles. I have assigned this variable with this value xyz bottles. I can go ahead and remove this assignment because now I don't have to assign it for each of these variable separately. Again, I can go ahead and remove this assignment as well. Now if you print the value, even though I am not assigning the values for each of this object, so b1 I have removed, and for b2 also I have removed the company name variable. If I run this code, you can see still I am getting b1.company name as xyz bottle and b2.company name as xyz bottle, even though I have not assigned to each object separately. So in this way you can make use of static variables. If you have a variable whose value will be same for all the object, in that case you can go for static variables. Using static variable, only one copy of that variable is created, which is at class level. In case of instance variable, the variables are created at object level. In case of static variable, it is created at class level. So using the class name we can assign values. For instance variable we have to use object to assign values. I hope it is clear what is the difference between static and instance variable. Also for static variables I can prove that only one copy is created for all the object. How can I prove that? If I go ahead and suppose if I change the value of object 1. So I will just change the value of object 1. Let me change it to ABC bottles. Now since only one copy is created, if I'm changing the value from this object, it should change for this object as well. So if I run the code, you can see for B1 object company name has become ABC bottle. For B2 as well the company name has become ABC bottle. That means same variable is getting shared by both the objects. So by this we can prove that only one copy of this static variable is created and it is shared by both the objects. So I hope it is clear. Now if you go further in this slide, we can read first point is declared inside a class but outside of any method, constructor or block using the static keyword. So we have already seen similar to instance variable, static variable is inside class but outside any constructor or method and it has a static keyword. Second point is there is only one copy which is shared by all objects. So this we have already seen. Can be accessed by class name and object variable name as well, though using the class name is the recommended best practice. What it means? We have seen it can be accessed by using class name. So we are using here class name dot variable name. It can also be accessed by using object name, but this is not the recommended way of using static variables. This is the recommended way of using static variable by using the class name because it is a class level variable and instance variables are object level variables. Next point is it is more memory efficient as memory is allocated only once. So obviously in case of instance variable, every time a new object is created, a new copy of this instance variable will be created. So obviously if we are creating 1000 object, 1000 times this copy will be created and it will occupy more memory. But in case of static variable, even if we are creating 1000 objects, it will be created only once. So it is more memory efficient. So that is the point mentioned here. So that was all about static variables. Let's go ahead and see our final variable, that is local variable. So what are local variable? Declared inside a method, constructor or block. So local variables are nothing but variables which are declared inside a method, constructor or block. We will see an example for this in a while. Only accessible from the point of its declaration to the closing curly braces of the method, constructor or block it is in. So what it means, if I'll show you with an example. So this is a method, this is a main method. So they exist only inside this curly braces, opening curly braces, closing curly braces. So they will exist inside this method, or if there is a constructor or any block, they cannot exist outside this method block or constructor block. Anything outside is instance variable or static variable. Variable declared inside this method are called local variables. For example, if I declare a variable int I equal to 5, now this variable is present inside this method. This method starts from this opening curly braces and ends till here. So this variable is present inside this method. So this is a local variable. Unlike instance and static variable, local variable are not automatically assigned a default value by the JVM. They must be explicitly initialized before they are used, or the code will result in compile time error. So what it means, in case of instance variable, we know we are not initializing this integer variable. By default, the value for this integer type variable will be 0. For any boolean variable, it will be false. For a string type, it will be null. So these are the default values assigned to these variables if they are instance variable or static variable. But in case of local variable, there is no default value assigned to this variable, and if we are trying to use this kind of variable and we are not initializing this variable, it may result into compile time error. How it can result in compile time error? I have declared this variable. Suppose based on some condition I am assigning value to this variable. So let me generate true false value using random class. So this statement will generate true or false randomly, and if it is true, I will assign value as 5. If it is false, this will not be assigned any value. And now if I try to print I, if I run this, you can see we are already getting error, compile time error. Variable I might not have been initialized, so it is giving me error, like it might not have been initialized. Obviously, if we are getting true, then only it is getting initialized. If it is false, this block will be skipped and I will be having no value, because Java is not assigning any default value to this variable. So it will not be initialized and we will get this error, I might not have been initialized. So if you are using a local variable, make sure to initialize it. Now if we look at the next point, local variables are used for temporary storage within a method or block. What it means, since the scope of this local variable is only inside this method, once the method is used, the local variables are initialized, and once the method execution completes, the variables are destroyed. So since the scope of this local variable is only inside this method or constructor or inside any block, they are also called as temporary variables because they are used to store temporary values. So here we can see local variables are used for temporary storage. Think of it as if someone comes to you and asks to calculate this value. So what you will do, they will ask you to calculate 5 plus 7 plus 10 plus 12. Now in your mind you will create a scratch pad. So in your mind you will start calculating 5 plus 7 equal to 12, 12 plus 10 equal to 22, 22 plus 12 equal to 34, and then you will give the answer as 34. So these intermediate values 12 and 22, once you give the answer 34, you will not remember these values because these were temporary calculation values. You will only remember this 34. So this 12 and 22 can be considered as a temporary storage values. Once you get this answer, you will forget 12 and 22 because these values were used for temporary calculation. Local variables are similar to that. Once the method execution is started, local variables are initialized, they are used, and they are destroyed once the method execution is completed. Now we will see a simple and more realistic example And in that example, we will make use of local variables. So let's go to our IntelliJ IDEA. We will create a fill method which will print the capacity of water bottle and amount of water present inside that bottle. For example, if the capacity of the water bottle is 2 liter and the amount of water present is half liter, fill method will print those details. So let's go ahead and create two variables: double capacity of bottle. So this will hold the capacity of the water bottle, and second variable will be current volume. So what is the current volume of water present inside the water bottle? So I have created this two instance variable, and then I will go ahead and create a method. It will have method name is fill, and it will take the amount of water to fill. So what this variable will do, we have to call this method and we have to provide how much water we want to fill. So for example, if I want to fill half liter, I can provide 0.5. This is the input for this method field, and user has to provide how much water needs to be filled to the bottle. Now let's create a local variable of double type new volume. New volume will be equal to current volume plus amount to fill. So initially this current volume will be 0. Capacity, suppose if we are having a 2 liter water bottle, this value will be 2. Current volume will be 0 because there is no water present inside the bottle. So I am creating a new volume. New volume will track how much amount of water is present inside the water bottle. So we have to add current bottle plus what is the amount of water to fill. If we are providing value as 0.5, so 0 plus 0.5 equal to 0.5. So the new volume of the bottle will be 0.5. Now I have to update this current volume with this new volume. Now I can print the details. The capacity of water, I will just mention bottle. Bottle is this variable, and the amount of the volume, we can write the volume filled is current volume. So capacity of bottle is, obviously it is a 2 liter bottle, so the capacity will be 2, and volume filled is, here we can see we are filling, this should be plus, we are filling 0.5. So here we can see it has 0.5 liters of water, so 0.5. If you want, you can also print how much the bottle is empty. The volume empty is, you can just subtract total capacity, so capacity of bottle minus current volume. You can create another local variable and store this value inside that local variable and print it. For example, let's create a local variable volume empty equal to, so we can take this local variable and add it here. So we have created a method which will print the details about the capacity of the bottle, tell how much volume the bottle is filled and how much volume is empty. Now let's try to use this method. So I will just comment this thing and let's use it with B1 object. So first I have to set the capacity. So suppose the capacity of bottle equal to 2, and now I will call the method b1.fill. I want to fill the bottle by half liter. So b1, I'm calling the method and I'm providing the amount of water I need to fill into the bottle. So let's run. Let me comment this piece of code so it will be easier to read. Let me just comment this as well, and we will run it again. So here you can see capacity of bottle is 2, volume filled is 0.5, volume empty is 1.5. So if I am changing the capacity to 3 and if I run it, now the capacity of the bottle is 3 liters, volume filled is 0.5, volume empty is 2.5 liters. So our code is working perfectly fine. Now if I call this method again and if I run this, so first time let me print a separator and run it again. So yeah, first time it capacity was 3 liters, we filled half liter, empty is 2.5. Again capacity will be same, again we filled it with 0.5 liter. So now volume filled is 1 liter and volume empty is 2 liters. So it is working perfectly fine. If I change it to 0.7, so it should become 1.2 liter. Volume filled is 1.2 liter, volume empty is 1.8 liter. So you can see here how we are making use of this method. Again, if you are not understanding what we are doing here and how I am declaring method, we will see in detail how this method works. But as of now, I am just showing you the use of local variable. So you can see I have used two local variables inside this method, and one local variable is new volume, one local variable is volume empty. So we have seen how to use this local variable inside the method, and the scope of this variable is only inside this method. Once we call this method, these variables will be created for temporary calculation. Once this method is executed, this variable will be destroyed. So this is how local variables work. So that was all about local variables. I hope it is clear. So that was all for this video. If you have any doubts, you can mention it in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.